So I'd like to call this June 27th, 2022 Sylvania Board of Education meeting to order. Jeff, you call the roll.
Ms. Huffman.
Here.
Mrs. Conklin.
Here.
Mrs. Lavalette.
Here.
Mr. Feller.
Here.
Mrs. Johnson.
Here.
Now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the flag's in the back there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Dr. Motley, we are with you.
Thank you, Mr. Feller. Good afternoon, everyone. My superintendent's report is quite brief, but quite important at the same time. This is the last week of our summer swing program. 4 weeks have gone by so quickly. For those of you who may not know, Summer Swing is our summer intervention program that is designed to address the loss of instruction as a result of COVID. What we have found that one shot in the arm last summer didn't do it, but we have also found that a lot of children benefit from receiving additional instruction during the summer, what we like to refer to as extended learning opportunities. This year, we ended the year, I believe we're going to end the year with about 290 students. We started out with about 325, I believe, but as the summer progressed, families are going on vacation and having time with their own family and traveling, so we did lose some students, but nevertheless, we provided a 4-week summer swing program for our students in the district. Also, we continue to work on our strategic plan. Members of our cabinet this morning met with one of our lead facilitators and provided an update on each of our 5 goal areas and where we are and things to consider as we move forward. I know we continue to have our teams meet weekly. I believe social, emotional health, and student well-being, wellness met this morning. Also, I think Ms. Johnson, you were in that meeting, so thank you for participating. But lots of good work still continuing in the district. For those of you who are here this evening in person, you probably saw part of our cafeteria is done. We are in the throes of cleaning our buildings. Our custodial staff is working so hard to make sure each of our 12 buildings are ready to go come the first day of school. So a special shout out and a heartfelt thank you to our custodial staff who are working around a number of summer programs for our students, and at the same time also making sure that our classrooms and hallways and large group spaces are clean and ready to go. That's the end of my superintendent's report, Mr. Feller.
Great, thank you. Now commendations.
Absolutely. I am so proud to recognize so many of our high school students from both Southview and Northview. We have a number of students who took the ACT and SAT late winter, early spring this past school year. We have a number of students who scored 26 and above on the ACT, as well as scores of 600 and above on the SAT. We are extremely proud of these students as they are contributing to the tradition of Sylvania excellence. So kudos to the students and their families.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Fantastic.
Call the roll.
Ms. Huffman.
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin.
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette.
Yes.
Mr. Feller.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, so now we are at the first opportunity for public participation for agenda items. So just a reminder, if you're here to share thoughts about the transportation, that's actually a non-agenda item, so that'll be later. If you have any comments on agenda items, this is the time to speak. And also, there's a few people came in a little bit later. There's a sign-up sheet in the back, so if you do want to talk later, make sure you sign up in the sign-up sheet. None? Okay. All right, thanks. Jeff, we're with you. Treasurer's report.
Okay, so I will be asking for a motion consent on the consent agenda for items 5.1 to 5.8. Let me start with 5.1 is, of course, the minutes from the last meetings. You'll note that we did have a tabled item that is on the agenda. The treasurer's report, our normal May financial reports, pretty straightforward. I'll talk a little bit about that here at the end. Availability of funds is a normal action. Credit card rebate, I think looks like we put that on once a year. That's just money coming into us from our credit card program. The permanent appropriations, item 5.5, that's on your in front of you, and again, this is our last one of the year. What we're doing here with our appropriations, in September, you would have approved the permanent appropriations. What this is doing is just linking those permanent appropriations up with maybe any other adjustments, and quite honestly, any other monies that have come in, like our federal grants, and making sure that our appropriations are in line with our revenue. It doesn't really affect our financial statements at all. It's just to making sure that we are in line with, we haven't appropriated any more than what we have revenue for, which is of course important, but this is more of a county auditor function that we have to, is required, so we always do that here in June. Temporary appropriations, again, is just a motion to do, we made it a little simpler this year, 50% of what we spent last year. I could have put any amount, but it's just an amount simply so we can start paying bills July 1st. What Mr. Koch will follow with is a permanent appropriation in August or September, which really is what we will spend for the year. But this just allows us to pay the light bill come July 1st. It's a very formal or informal thing. We legally, again, a county auditor requirement. The confirmation of transfers and advances, there are only a couple, and those actually are on your online board docs. There's just a couple. So what we've done in consultation with Mr. Koch, generally our federal programs, which are the 500 level, if you look at the financial reports at the 500 level, it's all our Title I, our IDEA, all those things. We can't get the money until we're in the, what we call in the red, until we've spent the money. Then we can request the money from the federal government through the state. And so it's kind of, they want to make sure you spend it before they actually give it to you. That's fine. So what happens in June, we're just finished payroll, all those funds are in the negative. What we've done in the past is advance money out of the general fund to cover it, because that's what we used to have to do, so you didn't end in the red. But what that does is create an expense to the general fund, because we're transferring that money to cover that. So it's an expense, and then in the next year, we would take that money back in as a receipt when we get the money. So it's throwing off 2 fiscal years. So what the state allowed us to do several years ago is actually end the year in the red with a request for money on file, which we'll have. That way, it's a much better way to do it. We're not throwing off 2 fiscal years. Like I say, Mr. Koch is totally excited about that. So that really reduced all these transfers and advances at the end of a fiscal year. It'll be much more simple going forward. So that's why, now this one, we did have a transfer to a grant that we won't get, that isn't through the federal government, that we're going to get from the University of Toledo. That money just hasn't come in yet, so we're covering that. That was one of the other one is our natatorium, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you about that, but every year we transfer money into our natatorium fund. I can guess why that is, because I work in district has a pool, so you usually don't make money, you usually have to supplement that a little bit, right? So I'm sure over the years that's just something. But the amount this year is a lot less than it was a year ago. So,
Well, that's good.
So it's really good. So that was our transfers and advances. The last item, certainly in case there's any questions too, is we are going to seek new buses for new bus bids and vans. As you know, we are in the process of updating the fleet. We are getting grants funding for some of these buses. We have some insurance money. We have some federal monies as well. But our fleet is on the process of being retooled. Yes. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
So this isn't approving the bid, because you have to approve that we go out for bid. So that's what this motion is. So are there any questions?
So will that put us on track for, like, I know we were behind on buying buses. Are we caught up yet? That's a no.
Probably not.
It's a good start to catch up.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this replacing existing buses? It's
Replace.
replacing existing buses?
I'm going to say
Yes.
absolutely yes.
What do we do with the aged buses?
So
Mr. Wolpert is actually here
Yes.
tonight. What's the age of our oldest bus, Mr.
This
Wolpert?
replaces 6 of the 7. We'll trade in 6 of the 7. These are, they're either mileaged out or they're 2001s. So mileaged out is 225,000 miles, 230 miles, 230,000 miles, you tend to look for new engines. So they're either mileaged out or they're 2001s.
And what do we do with them when they're,
They get traded in. Yeah, they usually give us between $1,500 and $2,500 for them. So
Okay.
sometimes we look for scrap and it's still a little bit better to trade it in, right? That's usually.
Yeah, it's harder to scrap vehicles nowadays because you have to drain all the fluids and get rid of all the fluids then. And so it's just a lot easier than you used to.
Okay.
Part of the reason, I think, for Jim too, is that because we qualified, not every district qualified for the bus grant, but because our buses were in need, right, we got 3. So that's some help. That's good.
Did we budget the other ones?
We
I thought
did.
we approved, okay.
We did.
Okay, well, with that, I'll move for approval on a consent agenda basis, items 5.1 through 5.8.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call roll.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Motley, we're back with you.
Thank you, sir. I recommend item 6.1, which is payment in lieu of for our parental contracts for the 21-22 school year. You may recall this item was tabled last board meeting because we had some questions and wanted to make sure we had accuracy on some of our families, and we did correct the attachment. There was a typo, so good catch, Ms. Hoffman. There was a typo on the last one.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of item 6.1.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, call
Mrs.
roll.
Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6.2, I recommend the appointment of Peter Nafziger. Is it Nafziger?
Nafziger?
Nafziger. I knew I was going to say that wrong.
It's all
As
right.
principal of Arbor Hills. Just to share a little bit about Peter. First and foremost, Peter is a Sylvania resident who has children in our district and is looking forward to blending family and work life together to make a difference not only in his own household, but in our community and have an impact on our community. Peter sees himself as a servant leader with a growth mindset, and he embraces definitely shared leadership when it comes to leading a building. He has a master's and a bachelor's degree from Bowling Green. Currently, he has served, well, as of hopefully when the board approves this tonight, principal of a middle school in Pike Delta York local school district, where I believe Mr. Wolpert worked with Peter. So that'll be you'll be reunited there. He also served as a social studies teacher at Lake Local Schools for about 20 years, or 10 years, I'm sorry, 10 years. He also has worked in Sylvania local schools, and on the other side of his career, he's been a coach. He's coached football, wrestling, track and field, so he's worked with children not only in the classroom as an administrator, but also as a coach on the field. So it is without hesitation that I recommend Peter to join our administrative team after going through a thorough interview process with educators and administrators at the table, a second round interview as well. We think he's a good fit for Arbor Hills, and it's without hesitation that I recommend him for this position.
I'll move for approval, item 6.2.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I'm excited.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And call roll.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Congratulations, welcome.
Congratulations, Peter. Thank you. I would like to recommend item 6.3. This is an MOU for a Southview science position that we would like to enter into with the Sylvania Education Association.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 6.4. This includes English language assignments for our EL teachers in the district for the 22-23 school year, where we will enter into an MOU with our Sylvania Education Association.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Thank you. I would like to recommend item 6.5, an agreement with the Northwest Ohio Educational Service Center Governing Board. This particular service agreement is to provide ESY services for a special needs student this summer.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
So this actually started a month ago?
It would have started the beginning of June, around June 6th, I believe.
Well, it says the term is 5/31, that's why
Actually, I see specifically from 5/31 through August 5th for a total of 42 hours. That's in item C,
Item C.
first
One-
page.
1C.
1C,
It's also number 2 on the term.
Yeah, I was looking at number 2 on the term.
Yeah.
yeah. But we did not start ESY on the 31st.
No, because we didn't start until.
That could have been for planning
second week of-
purposes, though, because it is an IEP student. I know they sometimes do a transition meeting in order to make sure that the ESC can provide the instruction. But I don't believe it started actual
Okay.
services. Am I correct,
That's
Mr.
correct.
Zero?
That is correct.
I'm gonna assume they started by now, though, right?
Yes,
Correct.
absolutely. Oh, yes. They've been in service.
Yeah, second week of June, I believe it was, yeah.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm recommending approval of agenda items 7.1 through 7.5 on a consent agenda basis.
Could I ask that you pull out 7.1?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Hoffman, I forgot about that.
And I think 7.5 also. No, 7.4.
7.4.
So let me rephrase that then. I am asking for approval of agenda items 7.2, 7.3, and 7.5 on a consent agenda basis.
Oh,
Go.
okay, go for those.
Go through it first.
Oh, okay, you can go through it first.
Okay.
You're so eager.
7.2 is an addendum for new hire teachers. 7.3 is a resignation. 7.5 is an addendum for licensed extra duty for some summer work.
I will move for approval on, I'll move for approval items 7.1, 7.3, and 7.5 on a consent.
2, 3, and
Did I
5.
just- Oh,
7, 2,
I'm
3.
sorry.
2, 3, and 5.
I move for approval items 7.2, 7.3, and 7.5 on a consent agenda basis.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call vote.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
I'm going to go back. I'll ask for approval on agenda item 7.1. These are licensed new teachers.
I'll move approval.
A second.
Any discussion? Call
Mrs.
vote.
Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Abstain.
Congratulations.
I'll recommend agenda item 7.4. This is licensed extra duty.
I'll move
for some summer
approval.
work.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call
Mrs.
vote.
Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Abstain.
I'm recommending agenda items 8.1 through 8.4 on a consent agenda basis. 8.1 are classified resignations. 8.2 is some classified summer programs, extra hours. 8.3 are classified new hires. And 8.4 is classified personnel changes.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 8.1 through 8.4.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call vote.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Recommend board approval on items 9.1 through 9.2 on a consent agenda basis. 9.1 are supplementals for the 22-23 school year. 9.2 are athletic volunteers for the 22-23 school year.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 9.1 and 9.2. I'll second.
Discussion? I have a quick question. We have, on 9.1, there's an 8th grade football coach for Arbor Hills. Isn't football going to like a junior high Northview team and a junior high Southview
Yeah.
team?
Yeah. It
Yeah,
should be the junior Cougars,
Should be
junior
junior Cougars,
Cats,
junior Cats.
but it will still be the junior Cougar, or the junior Cats will play out of Arbor Hills, so I don't know if we need to
Oh,
change
That's
that
what
or
I'm
not.
not, we
Yeah.
might have to supplement's gonna say junior cougars or junior cats.
Yeah, so we may want to pull that.
Yeah, can I pull it? I'd rather have it correct.
Yeah, so
So do we have to, who made the motion?
I did.
You have to amend your motion.
So,
Just withdraw it.
I'll
Yeah.
withdraw my motion.
Do we have to vote on that? Do we have to draw and withdraw?
No, you don't have to.
We don't have to vote on
Yeah.
withdrawing a motion?
I mean, so what do you want me to do? So you want me to move
You want to
to?
table?
Well, no, I
Where
think
we
we
at?
want to move to, he's pulling that off. So
Okay.
can I just move to
Approve 9.2.
approve 9.2 and 9.3 as amended?
9.2 only, I think.
9.2
Or
as
you're pulling all
amended.
9.1 or just that one? Do we need to approve the other ones that
Yeah.
are under 9.1?
Like
Yeah,
now,
we need to
right?
approve it.
Can we just pull one name or?
So you're just
is
pulling
it-
one name,
It's a
not
full
a-
Yeah,
agenda.
not
as
the whole
amended.
thing.
Yeah, as amended.
Okay.
With agreement with that name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you clear, Joe?
So you're going to make the motion to approve, it's still consent agenda with the removal of
With the
that?
removal of that one name.
Okay. Yes.
So do you need a second?
Yeah.
I'll
Ms.
second.
Johnson already seconded
Okay.
that, if that's okay.
Any discussion?
Josh, will we be expecting the rest of the fall supplementals in July?
I went back and looked because I know there was a question on that last couple weeks ago, and it looks like they're relatively all on there. We approved a whole big long list of them, I think, at the May 9th meeting. So I did go back and check on those. I believe they're pretty well all spoken
Well,
to.
there's at least a couple missing, but I'll talk to you about it.
I mean, we may not have them filled yet, so
Yeah.
they could be sitting empty as well. We have one for esports that I know Northview is getting ready to send over, just didn't make it in time for this agenda. Okay.
I'll talk to you.
Any more discussion? Yeah, call roll.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes. So now we're at board committee reports and announcements. Kim, do you have anything?
Nothing?
The only thing I have, we had a Sylvania Rec meeting a few weeks ago, and they announced they're gonna be doing some, they got a bunch of grants for Burnham Park, so they're gonna be doing some improvements to the Burnham Park area and the pool. That's all I got.
SCS, we met last week or the week before, our audit is completed, and we are also beefing up the training for the after-school child care program in conjunction with Sylvania Schools training. And we had help me out, Tim, we had the social, emotional, yes. Strategic plan committee meeting this morning, and I feel like we're really moving along. We have goals, sub-goals, some anticipated timeframes, and we'll meet again probably in 2 weeks. We've been meeting it either every 1 or 2 weeks. And we plan to continue to do that and keep people informed as we have something that sounds like it would work, and get some comments and questions about it. And then the strategic plan meeting for communication, help me out, Josh, communication.
Culture and climate.
Thank you, culture and climate. I really am on both of these committees. We met a couple weeks ago, and again, the goal we have set, I think, pretty firmly, and we are working on items to sub-goals to look at and continue. I did have notes all typed out that made a lot more sense and was more eloquent, but I left them at home. Sorry. And I think that's it.
All right, Tim?
I have nothing new to report.
Okay. Okay, so now we are at the public participation for non-agenda items. So here it is. Before we start, I just kind of want to go over a few things. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming to share your concerns. So per our board policy, we do give each speaker 3 minutes, and I'm going to try and stick to that pretty close. So just in fairness for everyone and make sure everyone gets their time, we'll stick to 3 minutes. So when you get to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I'll probably just raise my hand and let you know that you have 30 seconds left. And then at 3 minutes, we'll ask to stop. So hopefully nobody goes longer than 3 minutes, because I really don't want to have to cut anybody off. If you do have more that you want to share beyond the 3 minutes, feel free. You can send an email to all the board members and Dr. Motley if you have anything you want to share, and we will get that. I would ask, try not to repeat what's been said before. If you want to reiterate what someone said, you can maybe just come up and say, I want to reiterate what so-and-so said, and we'll note that. And then this is your opportunity to present to the board, give us your thoughts and opinions, but it's not like a question back and forth, so the board won't be answering questions. And then lastly, when you come up to speak, please just state your name and address for the record, and then go ahead and talk. So, and if I botch these names, I'm really sorry. So first on the list is Nicole Vanderweel. Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so just state your name and address. And
my name is Nicole Vanderweel. I live at 5558 Wood Trace Court in Sylvania. I'm talking about the bus situation, and I'm not really going to get into the legality of the proposed busing situation. It's clear that the public and non-public schools are not being treated equally in this case. I work as the vice president of a transportation and logistics company, so I understand better than most the professional driver shortage our nation is facing right now. Frankly, professional drivers with the CDL are able to work anywhere they want. They're very in demand, so I guess why would they want to drive a school bus? There has to be a draw. We spend thousands of dollars annually to bring drivers to work at our company. We work on the packages that we can put together to offer them, the vehicles we can offer, what other perks can we give. So besides really looking at the employment package that you're going to give these drivers, like how are you advertising? Professional drivers probably aren't looking at the blade for job opportunities. So what steps have been taken to address the driver shortage? Cutting routes isn't a solution to the actual problem, certainly not long term, because this is not a new problem. This has been years in the making. Solutions might be revamping your employment package, finding a recruiting company to work with, different advertising locations. You're up against over-the-road transportation companies, such as where I work, companies that haul fuel, trash, food-grade units. So what's the draw to be a bus driver? Home every night, making a difference in a child's life, set vacation schedule. Right now, professional drivers have so many options, but I personally come across people that would fit that bill on a weekly basis that don't fit our transportation mode. Since we are facing these same challenges daily and we are transporting auto parts, hospital beds, ventilators, all seems like pretty important cargo, but can't possibly compare to what needs to be transported here. These kids are the most precious cargo of all. As the mother of a 5-year-old entering kindergarten this fall at St. Joe's, I absolutely couldn't put her on a bus with high school students and absolutely couldn't trust that she could safely transfer buses. My daughter is so looking forward to riding the bus like a big girl, and it breaks my heart to think that she's not going to be given that opportunity, because with this proposed route change, it's clear her safety and mental well-being isn't a priority. This is neither safe nor appropriate for small children, and it's not an actual solution to the problem at hand.
thank you. Ed Deischer.
I'm Ed Deischer. I live over on Fair Meadow Drive here in Sylvania. I come to you this evening addressing a fresh set of faces of board members since the 3.5-4 years ago that we last had a concern with busing. In talking to other taxpayers and SJPS parents, it seems like it goes back generations. It's always a thing. I'll tell you that the adjustments that were proposed in April would negatively impact 2 of our family members, my daughter, and then also my niece that is starting kindergarten. So it's untenable in many ways, and is previously referenced, of putting a kindergartner on high schoolers. But I challenge you to go to your public school parents and go, hey, we're going to take all of your kindergartners and ship them to the middle schools and then reroute them on buses that are already preloaded that have been sitting there waiting. I don't think any of them are going to find that okay. Also, I really challenged you to get some feedback from the public school parents whose children are now going to be delayed, because all of your buses are waiting on those 5 buses to come from St. Joe's to then be reloaded. You're affecting extracurriculars, all kinds of schedules, all of those things. Just our family, there are 9 voters that will be affected by this. If you do this, you by law can do that, as pointed out by your transportation director. Doesn't mean you should. This board enjoys a very strong relationship with the non-public schools, always has. You don't have to look very far down the road to your neighbors, school districts who have trouble passing levies because that relationship has previously in previous boards generations been damaged. If you look at what the voting history has been, you know, you've got a very strong epicenter of the Catholic parishioners here. One of the strongest in the state, definitely in Northwest Ohio, all contained within here in St. Joe's. And I'll tell you, the people that have formerly had, when it comes levy time, they always go, hey, how's the relationship between, how's that working out the schools? Busing's always been an issue. How's that going? Because they want to know how they're going to vote. So it's not just the 350 households that are directly affecting, that are voting yes on your levies. There's 3,000 households that stand with you and vote yes. So what we're looking at is that automatic yes vote is, hey, we all go to the vote saying, yes, I'm voting yes, and yes, I'm going to make it there, because we want to make sure that our viability to keep our enrollment up is there. And if it's not, hey, we listen to our leadership. The fact that they have to send out the emails and kind of ring the bell of, hey guys, we've got an issue here, y'all have to go speak again, tells me that they are not being listened to. Some of the things in here are non-starters, and I think you need to consider that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett.
Good evening. I'm Brett Seymour, and I live at 2358 Williston Green Road in Toledo, Ohio. Thanks, Dr. Motley, Sylvania School Board, for your service and the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I've been here before several times to talk about non-public school transportation. On April 25th, Jim Wolpert made a proposal after less than 2 months on the job to materially change transportation and the futures of thousands of non-public school kids to come. I mean nothing personal to Jim, and I had an hours-long conversation with him last Friday, making sure that I understood the proposal and voicing my strenuous objection to the proposal on several merits. Additionally, I spent an hour speaking to board member Greg Feller regarding this transportation proposal. I expressed in both conversations that if this body sought collaboration from both schools and parents at St. Joe's, Christ the King, and St. Benedict's, certainly there could have been more alternatives offered. That didn't happen. We're all taxpayers. Making material changes to transportation policy like this profoundly affects our whole community. It affects home values, it affects community life, it affects future residents for generations to come, to name a few. We deserve and demand better from this body. Second, on the merits of the proposal, let me say I believe that the proposal is both illegal and lacks good social conscience. On the legal part, our lawyers tell us that under Ohio law, as set forth in Chapter 3327 of the Ohio Revised Code, when a resident non-public school parents are entitled to public district transportation, it is undisputed for these schools and students that the public board must treat equally all students who are similarly situated. See Ohio Attorney General Opinion number 74-040. It is clear that it is necessary, reasonable, and practical for Sylvania to provide transportation for these kids. As stated, the Transportation Services for Chartered Non-Public Community Schools Manual, published by the Ohio Department of Education, Chapter 2, page 5, and I quote, "The public school district must transport eligible pupils to schools in a manner that allows them to arrive at school on time and subsequently be picked up in a timely manner after school, even if that school's start times, finish times do not coincide with the public school district." It goes on to say that transportation must be equal treatment in providing a safe and timely transportation. I believe the proposal violates both. When you combine only 3 non-public elementary and middle schools with high school students, and you do not ask the same of your public school students, you are violating the equal rights terms. I also have great concerns about mixing ages of students and the long-term impact of ridership, but my time here is running out. I hope from this meeting you will determine that the proposal is both inappropriate and not okay to do for our kids, and you'll digest something more equally substantial for all kids. If that decision is made to go forward in treating these non-public school kids in an unequal manner, you leave parents, taxpayers, and community members no choice than to take this to the next level in the legal system. Thank you.
Jennifer Sweich. Is that right? Sweet, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Sweech, and I live at 6005 Indian Trail in Sylvania with my husband, our 3 children. We currently have an incoming kindergartner, 3rd grader, and 5th grader at St. Joe's. I'm here today, like many others, to express my concerns with the safety and legality of the new transportation plan and to request that the board reconsider its implementation. Sylvania Schools states that the new transportation plan will provide safe, consistent, and reliable transportation. However, there's nothing safe or acceptable about this plan. It disproportionately affects St. Joe's students. Putting a 5-year-old on the same bus as an 18-year-old is not safe or appropriate. There is a major difference in maturity level and age appropriateness between these students. The letter from the district states that the younger students will be seated in the front, quote, for safety and supervision, so the district clearly acknowledges that this is a legitimate concern in this plan, yet they still chose to implement this plan. In addition, how can a bus driver be expected to supervise younger students when they should be focused 100% on the safety of driving the bus? Expecting elementary students to get off the bus and onto another in a high school or junior high parking lot is not safe. Who is responsible for supervising the transfer and ensuring that all students are safe and make it onto the shuttle? Forcing non-public students to endure longer bus rides and times is unacceptable. This plan prioritizes the public school students. St. Joe's is within district boundaries. There is no valid justification for a shuttle approach in this case. I could go on and on with my concerns, but as you know, Ohio law, Section 3327 requires that similar or equivalent transportation be provided for students to and from a non-public or community school unless it is deemed impractical. A lack of bus drivers is not a factor in the impracticality determination. The Ohio Department of Education has also made it clear that state law does not allow a school district to prioritize the needs of its own students over the needs of non-public community students. This plan does not provide for similar or equivalent transportation and very clearly prioritizes the needs of Sylvania students in direct violation of state law. Most significantly, this plan violates St. Joe's students' rights under free exercise clause of the First Amendment, which protects religious observers against unequal treatment. This plan is discriminatory as it imposes a greater burden on St. Joe's students and treats them less favorably than Sylvania public students on the basis of their religion. Public elementary students are not being forced to ride a bus with high school and junior high students or switch buses in another school's parking lot or ride a bus for exceedingly longer than otherwise necessary. This legal precedent is well settled, even as recently as the Sixth Circuit's decision in Monclova Christian Academy versus the Toledo Lucas County Health Department. I'm genuinely surprised that this district's legal counsel would have approved this plan, given the likelihood of legal challenge and potential for liability. For these reasons and the reasons expressed by so many of my fellow St. Joe's parents already, I would respectfully request that you reconsider the current plan and reinstate the transportation model used for St. Joe's students in the past. Thank you.
Allison Schlager.
Good evening. My name is Joe Schlager, along with my wife Allison Schlager. We are Sylvania residents and live at 5255 Rymore Drive. I'll be very brief. I think most of the folks that have spoken tonight and have done so very well have expressed all of the same concerns that my wife and I have. We have a first grader, fourth grader, and 2 sixth graders that would be riding the bus. I guess the only thing that I want to add from our perspective is that in addition to the concerns about our young children riding the bus with high schoolers as well, is the concern about what's that's going to do, the time that our kids are spending on the bus, how much extra time, being able to get home in a timely manner for extracurriculars. Our children are very active. They're involved in many different activities. And beyond that, my wife and I, we both work full-time. We have very demanding jobs, so we don't always we rely on the busing system to get our kids to where they need to go. And I have serious concerns without seeing a little more detail in the plan, what the route's like and how that's going to delay times. My kids go into Arbor Hills after school and then coming all the way back to St. Joe's. I don't know how that happens very quickly or how that's all going to work, and I have very serious concerns about that. Again, the legal concerns, I have the same ones. much of the same concerns the other parents have expressed here today. So I'll leave it at that and won't go repeating all the same things and just leave it there. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, appreciate it. Kate Kramer?
Good evening. My name is Kate Kramer. I'm at 3664 Wood Spring Road in Sylvania. I have the same concerns. I just want to reiterate what everyone else has basically said regarding, the safety concerns. As a physician, I also, I'm concerned about, social development as well. I know you guys had mentioned that the kindergarten, first graders, probably second graders would be, in the front of the bus, but still, we've all been seniors in high school before, and, fifth and sixth graders, have much different conversations than 18-year-olds, and I think that, it's not appropriate to have them sitting together. And like I said, pretty much everything else that they've said, I just would reiterate the same. I don't really have much else to add. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Steve Urbanski.
Good evening. My name is Steve Urbanski. Address is 5916 Sarah Lake Drive in Sylvania. I'm the principal at Christ the King, as well as have elementary age students or children. Dr. Motley, Mr. Zeroff, Mr. Wolpert, thank you for your time throughout this process. The three of you have answered all of my questions in the previously, addressed all of my concerns. Board members, I'd like to share those same concerns with you, many of which they have already addressed. We're all here for the same reason. Okay? Those of you sitting here in front of me, as well as those behind me. We love our city. If we didn't, we wouldn't be taxpayers, and we love our children. That's why all of us are here. That's why you want an education. You're supporting the school board, and they are here fighting for their children. I'm empathizing with Mr. Wolpert and all of you for the situation you're tasked with. We understand that things are not the same now as they have been previously. We used to have plenty of bus drivers that would make this no longer discussion. But times have changed. We no longer have the ample amount of bus drivers, and that's up for debate as to why. But the bottom line is we don't have that. So based on what we're presented with, a change has to be made, and I empathize with you when it comes to that. But I do ask that you empathize with myself, as well as all the parents sitting behind me, in coming up with another solution. If asked, do you think it's best or indifferent to have a young child ride a bus with a high school student? My guess is you would say if we could do without having to do that, we would. So why don't we? If asked, does it make sense to have students sit idly on a bus for 30 minutes while we wait for the next school to dismiss? We'd probably say if we don't have to do that, we won't. Then why are we even considering that? If asked, does it make sense to have kindergartners get off not once but possibly twice of one bus onto another one? My guess is you would say that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, why are we considering that? I understand this is a logistical nightmare right now. I empathize with you, but I do believe that there are other solutions. Okay? Myself, as well as the principals from St. Joe Sylvania and St. Benedict, we have a good rapport with each other, and we would like to be part of the solution. We believe that there are other solutions out there, which I expressed to Mr. Wolpert, Dr. Motley, and Mr. Zeroff earlier. Okay? We believe that the three schools could come together with a plan that we feel is safe, would not result in elementary students riding the bus with high school students, would not result in students being left idly on a bus for 30 minutes while waiting for the next bus to get off, and would not deal with over 200 students amongst 4 different schools getting off and onto that same bus. So I just ask for your partnership so we can work together. We do have great ideas, and I ask that you just take a moment, listen to our ideas so we can come up with a better plan than what is currently presented. Again, I'm empathizing with all of you. This is a very tough situation, but I also ask the same in return, that you empathize with myself, the principals, and the other families. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk with Veronica and Tim today, or Dr. Motley. I appreciate it. Joe LeBlanc.
My name is Joe LeBlanc, and I live at 6024 Kenneth Court in Sylvania. I think I share the same opinion of a lot of the parents that came before me. Just kind of want to reiterate, when looking over the letter that was shared by the superintendent with St. Joe's, it's tough from a parent standpoint, looking at the, we'll say the sale of it or the benefit laid out in the letter, that to really understand the benefit of any of the points made. So a lot of parents have discussed already around the safety, but if we're talking about reliability and consistent, and I think it's also mentioned in a timely manner, I share very much the same concerns on the timely manner as well. I have a son who will be going into 2nd grade and a daughter going into 6th, and from a timeliness standpoint, we had a few cancellations of our school bus this year, which does provide some inconvenience. However, that amount of time and kind of pivoting and reacting at that point, versus 20 minutes every day, 30 minutes every day, 5 days a week, adding is just a significant difference in the negative, in my opinion, versus having a few days. So it's not clear in terms of consistency and reliability what this is going to offer. Buses still break down, drivers still get sick. So with, at least personally, the impact that we felt, it doesn't seem like this solution, it's not clear what value that's adding. And then from a standpoint of safety, I share the same concerns. My son needs very explicit instructions for switching a bus. You drop him off at his school. Is someone corralling them to the right bus every day? His sister won't always be there with him, right? Feel better about her, routing to the right bus. But for someone going into 2nd grade, let alone I have some kindergartners and 1st graders here, that just sounds like a nightmare to me on the logistics and the manpower to steer those kids to the right direction. So just want to echo those concerns. What we have presented before us just does not seem like a viable solution. Trying to think objectively about it and really understand what are the benefits, what we have been presented with, it's really tough to see any of the value in any of the points shared. So I share the same feelings opposed to the solution presented, and interested to see if we can do better. So thank you.
All right, so that was everyone who signed up. Was there anyone else? Do you have more? Okay.
My name is Anna Snyder. I live in 4855 Rolandale Avenue. One of my questions is, have you asked the police about security measure before doing this decision? Every time we have many activities in the community, and the police is always invited. And one time I asked one of them, a police officer, if they talk with kids about drugs, which is one of the biggest issue in the whole country, statewide, and Toledo is not the exception, and Sylvania School neither. And they try to talk about drugs, and knowing that today the drugs is not only the powder that we know as a cocaine, but there are other kind of drug and other shape, even in gummy bear shapes. So it's a concern there. Who is going to verify that is not happening while all this amount of kids? Another big issue I see in this country is the shootings in schools. All these kids, taller, smaller, with difference in weight. And it's not if something that happened, God forbid, but we never know. We're not how they're going to handle that. How teach these kids, taller kid with more weight. It's kind of confused for me. It's like I cannot imagine the picture, but I wish imagine is something happened with shooting, if something happened with sexual harassment or sexual between taller kids, like teenagers, they trying to kiss between them. It's kind of normal. Everyone passed through that. And then maybe smaller kids from 1st grade, they have never talked they didn't never have this conversation with their parents. So it's going to be kind of exposed to something they are not prepared to. And what about the drugs? I mean, it's going to be a way to guarantee that nothing is passing around between the tallers and the smaller. I mean, teenagers and this first elementary school. So I think there's something that to be considered, and because not everything is a problem. One of my neighbors, 30 years ago, his kids were picked up in Forest Lawn, which is 1 block from my house. We have to walk 4 houses to arrive. So why not to put all the kids to pick up in one street next to our house instead of doing this drop-off, who to me is a big safe issue. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that is everybody that signed up. So that is the end of the public participation. Next, we will have, well, I guess I make a motion, we go into executive session for,
Mr. Feller,
sorry, yes.
may I have permission to say a few words?
Sure.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I certainly appreciated the conversation today, Steve, and being able to not only hear pretty much what many of your parents and many of our Sylvania residents have spoken to the points tonight directly, but I think more importantly also the opportunity to hear a little bit more in detail about what our district faces in regards to all the variables that are involved. I can speak on behalf of our administration and our Board of Education. I don't think what we are proposing is optimal by any means. Unfortunately, we all are experiencing some challenges across the country, locally, across the state line, down the street, all those things. We are all looking at some challenges, but nevertheless, we do need to work together to look at and to learn about what the variables we have to face. So for example, when we spoke with Steve today, to say that we already have schools in our community that are already operating under this current model. That was a note of information that isn't commonly known. In addition, being informed, not by Steve, but sort of through the grapevine, that there is encouragement of some of our parents in Sylvania to sign up for transportation, even though they don't require transportation. And that's a burden because, for example, if we have 300 kids to provide transportation for, when we really know in actuality there's only 100, we're going to provide bus stops and routing for a pseudo 200 students, which will have a significant negative impact on our routing. So I know there's a rumor mill out there that, listen, if everyone signs up for transportation, that it will help us keep our buses, and then those students don't show up for transportation, we have really created a more significant problem because we're going to have transportation for students that will never board the bus, which is going to be a waste of time of our routing, of our drivers, that will impact your households when that bus is scheduled to be there at 7:15, and now we find out 3 routes before don't even exist because the families did it for another reason. I'm going to say that's an alleged rumor that I'm hearing. If that is the case, I implore you on behalf of your children, our students, our children in this Board of Education, please don't provide us with false information, because it's just going to make it so complicated, and it's going to not impact just the 3 schools we're talking about tonight in Sylvania schools, but the other non-public schools that we provide transportation for. So just a tidbit of information how you can help us. If you need transportation, sign up. If you don't, and you already have, remove your name. Or if you don't know yet, that's okay too. But we really need to work with realistic numbers, because where we may say now it's 30 minutes, it may take it down to 15 minutes if we're not planning for extra kids that aren't going to be there. So I just ask for that. And also, if you know anyone who wants to be a bus driver, we are hiring. I think we just onboarded maybe 3 or 4 in the last month or so. But please, if you have grandparents or in-laws that want to ride, or drive a bus, it's one of the best jobs in the world. And listen, we all can use the help, and to help us transport our kids safely. So I know that we discussed earlier today to have a follow-up meeting, not only with Steve, but his other colleagues, coming to the table and say, here are our concerns and variables. Here are our concerns as Sylvania schools, and how can we come together? Because we have to work through this together. We do. Hence, one of the reasons we wanted to communicate early. And we communicated early in order that we could have time for conversations. The other piece I want you to know, and last and final note, and I promise I won't go on and on, Mr. Feller, you know, we are also very reliant on people to complete their transportation requests, which is called a OneView system that we have in our district. If you're wondering right now if we're sitting back holding like we're not routing because, you know, we want to hold all the information closely, that's not the case. We need about 75% of our families to upload their information before our routing app can be accurate. If we upload or start routing our bus routes with 50% of our students and our children in the district, and we keep having to reroute and reroute and reroute, you will get several different notices in a matter of really potentially a week. We have kindergartners who are still registering that haven't, some parents are still thinking about registering. So if you also know parents that need to register their children for kindergarten, if you could help with that too. But those are the things that we're waiting on to make sure that we can route accurately. So please know we are not completing routes right now. We are waiting for numbers. We have an idea, but I want you to know in conversations even with Jim and our assistant transportation director, what may have started out as a 20 to 30 minute delay may not end up that way at all, but it's all going to depend on our parents giving us accurate information. We have a good number, 75% of our parents informing us that they need transportation or not, and also so that we can build those routes to make sure we are efficient. Right now, everything's kind of hypothetical and we're doing the best we can based on trending data that we've had in the past. But I think one of the things that came out in our communication, why the significant change, at one time Sylvania Schools had well over 100 bus drivers. If my memory serves me right, I want to say at one time we had 108 to bus 4,500 students. We're down to, I want to say, Jim, under 70 at this point? 68, where we used to have over 100. And I didn't know if that's a factoid that folks knew, but I thought it was important to share that. Truly, if you can help us sound the alarm, we welcome more bus drivers, and in addition to getting creative to other avenues, and we will continue to do so. So Steve, we will get together. We will invite some parents to the table as well. We think that's important to hear your voice as you represent our partners. So thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Feller.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to...
Can I, just 2 quick points in response to that? I have some additional time to what was presented.
Be quick, yes.
Yeah, I will be quick. One point that was referenced when we were looking at busing before was the shuttling system for non-public schools that were outside of the district. And you mentioned that there were some within the district that are doing that. I would like to request that somebody look into how many of those were full buses, because those entities that are doing that were fractions of the amount of students that are being looked at here for 5 full buses and 3 partial buses. Also, in reviewing the tapes that were presented online from April when this was first proposed, I believe the director said you were all projected to possibly have 8 retirements of bus drivers, which was precipitating the need for this action and this plan. And we have not heard how many of those actually retired. You mentioned you brought 3 new on. So if you actually had 8 retirements, or if you had 3 and then you brought 3 people, is the actual shortfall present that was being projected back in April, May? If we could see those numbers, just as a request for information from that.
Okay, I would ask maybe send an email to maybe Mr. Zeroff, and they can provide that information to you.
Yes,
or maybe to Josh.
Or maybe,
Mr.
yeah.
Travers.
Or yeah, Josh, probably.
He could probably get you how many retirements there are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to move to go into executive session for the purpose of employment or compensation of an employee.
I second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavalette?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes,
And there will be no action taken after executive. Thank you.
it's just the board, right?
Yeah, just the board. Yep.